Ghana was a bad example. It was a bad, and everything had to be done to make sure that Ghana under Nkrumah will not succeed. I remember one incident. At 37, I went to inquire about a medicine at the dispensary, the pharmacy. I was there when a woman, her turn came, she gave her prescription to the dispenser, the pharmacist, and she said, please tell me how much it's going to cost. And he said about 210 cedis. And the woman was shaking and said, I have only 40 cedis on me. Please give me 40 cedis worth of the prescription. That is what the woman said. Give me 40 cedis worth of the prescription. This is where we have reduced the country to. We are wicked. My generation is very, very wicked. We are really, really wicked. Wicked. We've messed you up. We've messed your generation up. So, the liberation is you.
Hello and welcome to Talking Africa. Today we'll be having a conversation with a man who has dedicated his entire life to fighting injustice and uplifting his people. Born in 1950, he has lived through every government that Ghana has had since independence. He was a member of Kwame Nkrumah's Young Pioneers and is today an elder statesman. And perhaps most significantly, he is the brain behind the introduction of Black History Month in the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest for this interview is none other than Akyaaba Addai-Sebo. Senior, thank you very much for making the time to be with us.
I'm very delighted to be with you because what you have initiated, you and your team, is very, very important. It's answering some of the concerns of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah. It's highlighting the African personality and the agency of African unity. And you've taken on this mantle. And I'm very delighted and wish you the best of success in what you are doing.
Thank you very much, Senior. To begin with, there are many who know you, but there are also unfortunately many who may not know you. So can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, I always find it difficult talking about myself. I was born in Kumasi area, just about 200 meters away from the Kumasi fort, which was the last battlefront of the Yasantua War. And so the spirit of the Adum area, in that particular area near the post office, the Bank of Ghana area, the prisons, at the heart of it, that is where I was conceived by my mother, my father, and that's where I was born. So, and also during the period of the campaign for independence. So I was born in a period of change, a period of turmoil, a period of agitation, a period of the time that the youth were saying that no, we are tired of living under colonial rule. They must pack and go, and we will determine our own destiny. That was the period that I was born in. India had just gotten its independence in 1947, and the World War had not ended, had ended almost about 6 years ago. And so it was a period that also shaped me. The spirit of it shaped me. So I was privileged to have been born during that period. Yeah.
Right.
And so I grew up in Asawase, Aboabo, which is a settlement that the Nkrumah regime, that the CPP from 51, they built that settlement as an estate, and it was a commonwealth. What I mean by commonwealth was that Asawase brought together people from all over West Africa and from all corners of Ghana. So the compound that we laid, for example, there were Moshi, there were the Dagati, there were Ewe, Krobo, Igbo, Yoruba, mixed. So Christians, Muslims, and traditional African religion, all mixed. So we grew up, even at that time, when you were about 4, 5, 6, 7, then you had a smattering of several languages and dialects, apart from the Asante. And then you could pick up Hausa, you could pick up Mosi, you could pick up Yoruba, so you had all these sounds and all that running into your head, and then you have our friends, we ate together, we played together. That was the spirit. And I went to school, Abuabu Primary School, then middle school in Asawase, and then took the common entrance and went to Adesada College. And there also was another experience, because people from all walks of life, from the very rich to the very poor, was there, and from all parts of Ghana and from other West African countries also were there. And we were very lucky to have been in the hands of teachers, the headmasters, and all this were very cosmopolitan and very open-minded, and ensure that we were rounded in our education. We were well-rounded in our education. So, and I think leadership matters a great deal, because under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah and the Convention People's Party, that also impacted on delivery of services in education and everything. So leadership is very, very important, and you could feel that there was something happening. There was a change. Soils were being machines were being run, and all that. Roads were being built, airports were being built, schools were being built, factories and all that were being built. So you saw that there was something going on, and everybody had something to do. I don't recall that there were situations, let's say unemployment as we have it here and all that. It was a marvelous period that you saw a nation moving. That was so nation building. You saw that nation was building itself, and the people were building, the workers' brigades, the builders' brigade, the people were the PWDs and all that. People were working. People, they had a sense that they were participating in the building or the creating of a new society. And I was lucky to have been born in that period.
Yes, since you spoke about the Nkrumah era, I believe you're a member of the Young Pioneers. So can you give us a brief history of the Young Pioneers?
Well, the Young Pioneer was a project of the Convention People's Party, and it was an organ of the CPP, the Convention People's Party. The Convention People's Party had the women's wing, the farmers and fishermen, and the cooperatives, the builders' brigade, the trade union movement, the Ideological Institute, the Young Pioneer Movement, all these were the integral wings of the CPP that made the CPP run and tick. That is, so from primary school to secondary school, there was a Young Pioneer Movement that we participated. And within the Young Pioneer Movement, there was a cultural wing, there were the science wing, the community development wing, the sports wing, the gymnastics wing. There were several wings. So you, whatever came to you naturally that you preferred, you joined that wing. So it was to bring the best out of each individual and also make you have a sense of loyalty to the nation. Because having come out of colonial rule, the sense of loyalty, education system, the civil service, everything has been crafted in service or in servitude to the colonial system. So how to have a way to change it so that we become loyal, not subversive to our own interests, but very loyal and protective of our own interests. That is what was being imbued in us.
Right, Senior. So what would you say Ghana has lost with the disbandment of the Young Pioneers and the lack of a replacement, an organization to train the youth? What would you say Ghana has lost?
We have lost a lot. We've lost a great deal. And it is reflective of where we are at the moment as a nation, where that sense of loyalty is lost, that sense of commitment to the nation is almost absent. And everything now is just to satisfy the metropolis, what I mean by the former colonial masters, the Americans, the British, the Germans, the Israelis, the Australians, the Canadians, South Africans, and all that, to satisfy everybody but ourselves. And that is sad. That is sad. And that is what is missing. We've missed a lot. And those who orchestrated the overthrow of Nkrumah, they knew what they were doing. They wanted to reverse it. And they managed to do that. And we have paid dearly for it as a nation. We paid dearly for it as a nation. And I blame my generation. My generation, we have betrayed and failed your younger generation and Ghana and Africa, because this is not what Ghana should be. Not at all. This is not what Ghana should be. We deserve better than where Ghana is at the moment. And I feel so sad about that. And I'm angry about it because we have betrayed my generation, that Nkrumah generation. They provided for us. They provided for us. They saw that we were well educated. During our time, schools were not like poultry farms. What I mean is that so crowded, schools so crowded, a school that normal will have a capacity for about 500 or 600, you have about 2,000 students there. It's incredible. With the infrastructure cannot support the students. And this is not what happened during our generation, during our period, and how the Nkrumah generation, they organized to make it possible for us to have the best of everything.
Yes, Senior. The last question on the Young Pioneer Movement. There were a lot of accusations that were leveled at the movement. A lot of accusations. Was there any validity to the accusations?
I don't know what these accusations are, but of course, we were at that time everything was being done to make it impossible for the independence to work, for the black man to prove that he can manage his or her own affairs, for the black person. And everything was being done to undermine this, that we can't take care of, without the white man, we can't administer our country, so we needed them back. And I'm sorry to say that the greatest critics and the greatest barrier to the development of the young pioneer were the churches, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church, Presbyterian Church, the evangelical churches. They were, and they showed their colors. Even during independence, on the day of independence, they threatened that if libation prayers were said at the polo grounds, they will boycott it unless they banned libation prayers. It's incredible. So Nkrumah faced that problem, because I remember at Adesado, one of the greater critics was the Archbishop of Accra, Bishop Roosevelt. And it got to a point that Nkrumah had to let him go. And there was so much pressure brought on Nkrumah for Nkrumah to return him. And you hear from Navrongo, the Catholic bishop there, they issue pastoral letters to their churches, attacking Nkrumah, attacking the young pioneers, and ascribing a whole lot of things, negative things, to undermine the purpose of the young pioneer movement. And some will say that we were spying and telling on our parents. I was a young pioneer, and I have no recollection of that. I have no recollection of that at all. No recollection of that. But a lot of things were said, basically to undermine and make it impossible for us to achieve that sense of independence, economic and political independence. That was it. That was it. That was it. And it was basically those who were in the service of the colonial system, who were the middlemen mediating between the colonial masters and the rest of the country. They resisted change. They resisted change. And they continue to constitute a quicksand underneath the new regime. And the sad aspect of it was that Nkrumah and the CPP, they did not enjoy what we call loyal opposition. The opposition right from the beginning would not accept losing elections. Nkrumah beat them in 51, beat them in 54, beat them in 56, beat them in 1960, and all that, but still they will not accept and be loyal opposition. Be loyal. It's the Ghana that we are thinking about. But they saw Nkrumah as an enemy. How to die? We win. You cannot coexist. He did everything, stretched forth his hands, everything, but they threw bombs at him and all that, undermining him. So it's not that they didn't try, they tried. If you look at Dankwa, Nkrumah gave him a position within the Ghana Academy of Sciences and Arts and all that, and he took it. They were friendly. He and Buzia, they were friendly. They all come from the same area in the Wenchi area. That's where Nkrumah's mother is from. So they knew each other, but yet still, they wouldn't accept. They wouldn't accept defeat. And that has affected us to this day. So they were they had taken on the mantle of being the Democrats, but Democrats who will not accept defeat. So, because I don't want to hear about the word democracy at all and Democrats, because of the experience that I had with them. I saw it, I experienced it. The mayhem, the bombs, the death, the killings, and all that. The terrorism started from that period. And one had to react. And if you react to, then they throw a lot of things against you, against human rights, you're against this, you're this, and all. It was not easy. It was not easy at all. It was not easy. And the young pioneer had to be killed. So when Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966, the first attack was to ban the Farmers' Council, the Young Pioneer Movement, the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute, the National Council of Women, and all these important organs of the CPP were disbanded. And that is how it is. And it was a watershed, and the country has not recovered from that.
Yes, Senior. So since you spoke about the violence of the opposition, would you say Kwame Nkrumah's decision to make Ghana a one-party state was justified?
Well, it's a period. It's a period. And then, the whole issue of opposition, the whole issue of democracy, the whole issue it's seeds of antagonism. That is not us as Africans. It is European. It is the white man's way. They see their world evil and bad, God and the devil. You see, it's dualistic. But ours is holistic. It's not dualistic. It's holistic. We are all part and parcel. There will be differences, but we have to deal. We have to deal with it. So it got to a point that is something that we had negotiated and then inherited, to be like the British, to be like the Americans, to be like the Europeans in terms of statecraft and the organization and management of the state and the society that you live in. And it got to a point, I think, when they will be thinking, how well is it doing for us, the polarization of society? How can we continue for this country to be polarized? And that is affecting our growth and development. So I think that was something that stirred them up to see that, okay, let's have a one party. Everybody belongs to one party so that we eliminate this antagonism, that dividing homes and all that, the workplace and everything. That is also affecting that sense of loyalty to the state or to the running of the country. And so it emerged. It emerged, and they saw that they had to practice that also, because they have practiced this from the time the British came and all that, through the legislative councils and all that. And before we got to independence and we started, and we saw the problems, the antagonism, the polarization of society. And you can't, to organize society or develop a nation along those lines. You can't. And I think that was what drove them to think about the one-party system, and then they went ahead with it in 1964 declared the one-party state. And but before the declaration of the one-party state, all the signs were there to undermine the Nkrumah. Nkrumah should not succeed. For the British, the Americans, the Israelis, the Australians, the Canadians, the Germans, the French, Ghana was a bad example. It was a bad, and everything had to be done to make sure that Ghana under Nkrumah will not succeed. And they managed to do that. And the turning point was in the Congo. The turning point was in the Congo. When under Ghana's again pushing, that the Congo rebellion there had to be stopped. And through the United Nations, they organized a UN force to go intervene there, and other African countries and others had to contribute troops. And Ghana contributed a large contingent of soldiers and the police force and administrators to go and help. And it was there that the contingent were corrupted. Nkrumah, at that time, the chief of defense staff was a British, Major General Alexander, and he led the contingent, and his loyalty was misplaced. He was more loyal to the Americans, the Belgians, and all that. And the Ghanaian officers that were working with him also, they were loyal to him more than to the head of state or the commander-in-chief, and they corrupted them. And there were some businessmen, American businessmen, Templesman, and the CIA officer, station officer, the Devlin, and all these people were there. And they were working, using the UN as a cover to undermine the Lumumba regime. And the Ghanaian officers got involved, and it was there that they got hold of them. And then after Lumumba was killed on January 17, 1961, it became obvious later on, information, Nkrumah intelligence and all that Ghanaians were involved. So Ankara and others, O2 and others were kicked out of the army, and they were used. They were those that were used by the CIA and the British intelligence and the Canadians and the French and the Belgians and the Israelis and the Germans to undermine the Nkrumah regime, and then kicked Nkrumah out. So by 1964, it was not the one-party state that triggered the overthrow of Nkrumah. No. The overthrow of Nkrumah had started way back, as far back as 1958.
Wow.
With the holding of the All African People's Conference at the Accra Community Center, which brought all the liberation movements and all to Ghana, Lumumba and all these people to Ghana at that time, Accra. And it changed people. They went back to go and fight and drive away the colonialists from Africa. And there, that they said that, no, this has to be stopped. So if you look at the forces that were against Nkrumah, and you weigh it against what he was able to achieve, it's incredible. It's incredible. It is really, really incredible. 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 He was doing everything almost by himself. He was sleeping less than 4 hours a day, always working and reading and writing and directing things. And he was lucky from the beginning. He had people like George Padmore with him, but George Padmore died in 1959. And that was horrible. It affected Nkrumah tremendously. So he had to be doing what George Padmore was doing. And so we have to have a sense of this history. Very, very important. And it is our history. And we have to have a sense of it. But unfortunately, we're in a situation where the attack on Nkrumah continues. The attack on Nkrumah continues. Because how is it possible that in a country like Ghana, you have someone graduating with a first-class degree in political science from any of our universities, Legon or Tech or Cape Coast, and they would not have been prescribed any book of Nkrumah as a course of study or as a text of study. And this can happen in Ghana. And to top it all, history as an independent subject even was removed out of the national curriculum. So these are some of the things that have happened, and it's real. It's real. And you've had vice chancellors who claim to be leftist, Marxist, Nkrumahist, everything. And you have pro-vice chancellors, heads of departments, and all this. And this happens, a sense of self-censorship of Nkrumah. Nkrumah has become a boogie. The irony of it all is this. I remember Nkrumah used to complain in the 50s that, look, against the British, that you have censored and banned this country, the Gold Coast, books by Lenin, by Marx, and all that, and Engels and all that. They are not circulated here. And even books by George Padmore were banned. Books by George Padmore were banned, and Nkrumah complained. But when you go to London, you go to Washington, you go to Paris, you go to the libraries and all that, all these books are available for the students, but us, you don't. Then it has happened to Nkrumah. It has happened to him. What he was complaining has happened to him, that we, so-called leftists, so-called social democrats, whatever we call ourselves, property owning capitalists or whatever it is, and we deny ourselves of the scholarship and praxis of Nkrumah. No, that is very disturbing. And that is the impact. That denial has affected us. Because if you don't know your history, where are you going? And that's the confusion that we are in. We have not, as a nation, been allowed to have the benefit of the scholarship of Nkrumah. Very rare do you have heads of state, heads of government, writing as much as Nkrumah did. You may think of Lenin. Apart from Lenin, who else can I think of? Kennedy, what did he write? Churchill, what did he write? Reagan, what did he write? All of them. None of them come anywhere close. Those in Europe, Mao wrote, and Lenin did. But apart from these three, none come anywhere close. And you have such a major intellectual asset who was not only intellectual, but was a practitioner. Rare. It's very rare to have someone who has that combination, who is a liberator and as well as a nation builder. Very rare. Very rare. Very, very rare. But we were lucky to have this combined in the personality of one person, Nkrumah. But what is important is that Nkrumah prepared himself. That is what is important. He took the African seriously. Very, very seriously. So, in order to rule and work in the interests of the African, he prepared himself. He studied and also worked hard. And most importantly, he was part of organizations and movements wherever he was in the US and UK, and was in confraternity with the leading minds of the period, organizers of the period. So from them he learned. I recall very well my own mentor who brought me up politically. He's called CLR James. And CLR James was the one who taught Nkrumah the art of political and underground organization in the US. And CLR James told me personally that what endeared Nkrumah to him was that when he first met Nkrumah, and he asked him, "What is your purpose?" What Nkrumah told him was that I've come to prepare myself to go back and kick out the British from West Africa. Mm. And he said, I looked at this young man. I said, where did that come from? That is something that they are all the part of the Pan-African movement they've been working for. And here is this man. And he said, I'm going to help you. So Nkrumah knew what he was about, and he prepared himself. Intellectually, he prepared himself. And that is what he represents to us and everyone who aspires to lead Ghana, even to be an MP. You have to prepare yourself. You have to be humble and prepare yourself. That intellectual preparation, be very, very, very clear. And that is what Nkrumah did. So not only did he prepare himself intellectually, he came and organized from below and became a leader of government business, becoming prime minister, becoming president and all that. So, and he won elections also. He won his constituency. So if you cannot even manage a constituency, how do you intend to be president? If you want to be president, then you have to be able to win a constituency, at least a constituency. So things that have gone into people's mind and have made the essence of leadership and the essence of service to the nation become very common and a mediocre objective. That is not us. That is not the heritage. Our heritage is that of preparedness and readiness, taking the population seriously, because you are dealing with the lives of people. So you have to prepare yourself very well. And that is what Nkrumah means to us. And anyone who has fallen short of that sense of preparation has failed Ghana. And that is the truth. And that is the truth. And that is the truth. So you have to be asking a lot of questions, your generation about my generation. You have to be asking a lot of questions about my generation. Why is it so? Why are we surrounded by so much filth? Why is it that the road from Accra to Kumasi, it takes you about 6 hours? Does it make sense? Why? You have to be asking questions. No railway line to cart goods. And you find all these long vehicles struggling on our hills and valleys to get to Burkina Faso. You build the roads and they mess it up. You have the lake that Nkrumah created for us. We can use it. What is wrong? You have to be asking a lot of questions. You have to be asking a lot of questions, particularly from my generation that benefited from the largesse of the Nkrumah generation. You have to ask these questions. They prepared us and sent us to the best universities in the world. Name it. In the Soviet Union, in Romania, Yugoslavia, Hungary, the US, UK, France, Germany, they gave us scholarships. And we went and studied and saw how societies have been built. If you were at Temple University, like Professor Butcher was, the longest finance minister, serving finance minister, if you were in Oxford, that Chachu Chikate and others went, or if you were at Sanders, what Kojo Chikate and other army officers went and all that, and going to lectures and all that, you did not traverse stinking gutters and bad roads and all that. You had a sense of quality life and quality organization of society. So you have a mental vision of that. Then we seized power by force of arms on 31st November 1981, overthrowing a democratically elected government. And since 82, January 82, my generation has held power, as represented then at that time by the Chiketes, the PV Obins, the Rawlings, the Butchers, the Abbeys, and all of them. That was my generation. We held on to power. And look at the country. Look at the country. Choco, West, Jamestown, Adabraka. Look at Adabraka, the state of Adabraka, official town and all that. I feel ashamed. Why? What happened? You have to be asking us questions. Your generation has to be having, you have made it so easy for us. The Nkrumah generation, they were asking questions as to the state of the Gold Coast. No schools, no hospitals, no this, very, very little. And they were asking questions of the colonial master, the British at that time. They said, no, we have to organize, mobilize, and kick them out. The time has come for you to do the same thing, because my generation, we are behaving, even not worse, like the British. Yes. How? In 2024, how can my generation, 2024, organize a contract to give away our lithium to an Australian startup company for almost nothing, less than 10%, and they're fighting 10 to 11%, and said, we should be happy to satisfy the foreigner. Is this not madness? What is the foreigner coming with? They say capital. Coming with what capital? Without the lithium deposit, how can the person raise capital? You have to ask questions. Without the deposit, how can the person raise capital? So you are giving your deposit for someone to go and raise capital, then come and tell you that it does not make sense. With all your education and everything, and living within the metropolis, within Paris, within UK, and all the experience that you've had, and some of you working at the World Bank and working at the stock exchange and all these things. So as a Ghanaian, you need some white people to come, and then you parcel out the land and you give that person that land to go and with it use it as a collateral to find money, then come back, and that he owns that. He owns that, but it is yours. Why couldn't you do it yourself? And then when you have people who try to do that to borrow money also, they have their companies like the Oforiatas, and then what is this guy's name? Dubois' son, Charles, and all these people, then they will earn interest over whatever. It's madness. It's madness. And you have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. You have to ask questions. Because my generation, we have betrayed and failed your generation. We have betrayed. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that in 2024, apart from the gold you've given away, the oil you've given away, the bauxite you've given away, the manganese you've given away, uranium even in the north, Gbeku area, Bolgatanga and all that, you are giving it away. Why? What is wrong? What is wrong? What is wrong with us and with my generation? So you have to ask him a lot of questions.
Let me ask you this, Senior. Looking at how far we have come and how low we have fallen since the promise of the Nkrumah era, will you say it is possible for Ghana to go back to the country Osagyefo was trying to build, where everybody had an opportunity and Ghana's wealth was to the benefit or for the benefit of the people?
It all depends on you, the younger generation, by saying that we are not accepting the current order of things. We don't accept it. In the same way that the Nkrumah generation, they said they did not accept the British colonial order of things. And they organized and mobilized the country. And it was supported independently by Ni Kobna Bonis and the ex-servicemen and all that, who were being cheated and all that. It's, oh my goodness. So the time is now. It's you. You have to reject the governance system that my generation has imposed on this country. The looting, you hear about it. And it had to take a judge to come out, fed up, said this brigandry of looting, create, loot and share. It had to take a judge to observe what is going on and say, no, this is not my country, this cannot be. And you have to take that seriously. What does that mean to you? That means you should not be accepting of the condition. That is, has humiliated you. As for me, when I was growing up, I don't think we had a problem with unemployment because the country was moving. It was developing everywhere. Things were going around. So you don't have that sense of unemployment. But my generation, we came and took power and exercised power more than the Nkrumah generation did over life and property. In Nkrumah's period, no one was killed extrajudicially or shot or people disappeared. Nothing like that. Not under Buzia, not under Acheampong or Akufu. But during my generation, when we took power on 31st December and 1st January 1982 up to this time, look at the killings and the disappearance, the killing of the judges, and the person who was at the heart of this America is still alive and free, living in Canada with exceptional leave to remain. And when you think of it, the Canadians were part and parcel in the overthrow of Nkrumah. So they can accept him. They know what they are doing. You see, these are some of the things that you should be asking questions about. And then what do we do? All of us. What do we do? We deliberately, induced by the IMF and the World Bank, the same way that they induced and told the NLC, that is Ankara, Afrifa, Kutuka, and them, that, Nkrumah was engaged in prestigious projects and all this that were too much for this country. You haven't arrived at that purpose, so you have to disband these things. Then the PNDC came to continue that policy, and teleguided by the IMF and World Bank and the US Treasury, they set up what we call Divestiture Implementation Committee, first headed by P.V. Obin, then Atuahwe, then Ebuteria, trade unionist, and you set up your mind to divest the country of its industrial, manufacturing, agricultural base. How can you do that? You are not a loyalist. You are not a Ghanaian. You are not an African. How can you do that? By destroying the industrial, manufacturing, and agricultural base of the country. What were you doing? You were creating unemployment. And unemployment goes with what? Inflation. And inflation goes with what? Borrowing. And borrowing goes with what? Hard taxation. And what that taxation go with that? Impoverishment and underdevelopment. That is what my generation has done to this country. We were producing most of what we needed, but now we import over 70% of our protein needs. How can it be? We have killed the poultry industry because of feed, and we are importing day-old chicks. And who have the contracts? It's among themselves. And what is happening to our own indigenous fowls? they are going away. When I was growing up, you could see turkeys, ducks, and chicken. But where are they now? You can't see even ducks now. You can't see turkeys. You can't. That is what we have done. We are not producing what we consume. It is a curse on us for us to be importing tomatoes and onions from Burkina Faso. It's a curse on us. With this rich arable land surrounding us, and there the Sahel, what is wrong? Aren't you questioning this? Aren't you questioning this? And my generation did it. We destroyed the industrial manufacturing base of this country. Tire, Boso, or name it, glass factory. But look at the importance of glass in building construction. Glass. Nkrumah, they saw it, they foresaw it. And we had the best sand for making glass. And we had also the best clays to make pottery and other stuff, ceramics. We were doing as much as possible to be self-sufficient. Then we come, my generation, we come and just destroy it. And the argument that some give, which does not make sense, is that, oh, we couldn't manage and they were getting loss and losses and all that. Then I say, at school, I remember in the science lab, we were breaking beakers and we're breaking things and throwing acids and all this and try to do experiments to make things work and all that. If you want an omelette and you're afraid to break eggs, what are you talking about? How did Germany develop? How did the UK and all that? Try and error. And you are complaining that, my goodness, what is wrong with my generation? It doesn't stand. It doesn't stand. It's stupid reasoning.
Senior, if I can come in. You know, you have been saying we need to ask questions. And personally, I have been asking certain questions. You see, for instance, Senior, we know after 1966 that most of the factories or surgical belts were abandoned. But in my research, I also came to find that after 1972, after General Acheampong took power, he worked to revive many of these factories. And beyond that, he also worked to implement policies to ensure self-reliance, like Operation Feed Yourself. And he also took majority share in all our mines. In many ways, I see that to be at least a continuation of Osagyefo's agenda to a large extent. And yet, Senior, I find that many young Nkrumahs at the time, especially the university students, found themselves strongly opposing Acheampong. And curiously, Senior, in fact, well, not curiously, I found a story of John Idebugri, who was a student leader at the time, where he expressed his regret about the strong opposition he as a student leader led against Acheampong, because he says that the general was a good man, and under him, Ghana was producing what we eat. We were eating Ghanaian rice, and we were not importing rice like today. So what I want to ask you, Senior, is that should some of your generation, especially with the benefit of hindsight, because I know that there were certainly problems in Acheampong's time, which have not, in fact, been interrogated, because, like you know, any leader who comes and tries to ensure self-reliance and to fight or reverse our dependence on foreign countries would be undermined. And indeed, Acheampong was undermined. But this has not been factored into the causes of the problems that his government faced. So what I want to ask you is, the opposition that came, especially from the left or from the students, with the benefit of hindsight, was it justified? Because like I said, in Ndebugi as one person, and not just in Ndebugi, I know another student leader at the time who has also told me personally about his regrets of opposing Acheampong. So, I don't even know if I'm asking a question, but in your view, the strong opposition to Acheampong by the left, was it justified, especially with the benefit of hindsight, and what came after that?
And then you go further back and you say the same thing about the Nkrumah regime. There was that opposition over there. There was that opposition. To the extent that even when Nkrumah made it compulsory for African studies, that you had to pass African studies to progress to the second year or the third year or whatever in the universities, there was opposition. There was opposition. So opposition has been there to undermine the progress to us towards independence, total economic and political independence. And they are there. The intelligence and security agencies of the West, they are planted within us to cause all these. And particularly the churches. If you look at the background of most of the position and the student leaders, most of them were influenced by pastors and others, like in Navrongo, Bishop Herman, other places. They were there. But look at 66. In March, Achimota Secondary School. Nkrumah's books were set to bonfire. And the first book that was thrown into the bonfire was Africa Must Unite. And who threw that book in there? The American ambassador at that time, Franklin Williams, and an African American, who went to the same university, Lincoln University, that Nkrumah went. And the Americans knew why they brought him here. And he did that. You see, but what is important is that he did it at Achimota School, the alma mater of Nkrumah. That your own people are rejecting you, they are burning your books. So we have to be very careful in our analysis, because there is always a historical antecedent. It has happened before, and it's a continuation of policy. In the same way that I said that the NPP NDC was a continuation of the NLC policy. And it is the same thing. The opposition against Acheampong and all that. Some of them, they didn't know. They were exuberance and others. They didn't know, but they were being driven by forces beyond their control. And it happens. As I speak to you now, they're getting to almost 250,000 American agents and all this around the country and here and all that. They are all over. And we also voluntarily even pass on information and all that to them because of visas and all these things and silly things. You see, so everything is loose. This is not our country. It's not our country. It is not our country. This is the reality that you have to face. And since 66, it's gotten worse and tighter and tighter and tighter. How is it possible that the US can have a military base in Ghana and a portion of the airport is under the control of the US? How? 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 Ghana? Ghana? No. These you have to be asking questions and demanding answers. That is your responsibility. Otherwise, we'll still continue to be in this mess. Continue to be in this mess. It's your duty, your responsibility. Look, within 10 or whatever years, I'll be gone. Okay? And then what troubles my mind is that, so I am going to die. And Jamestown is in terrible condition. Akwetema, terrible condition. Sukula, terrible condition. Don't talk about Kumasi. Don't talk about Sunyane. Don't talk about Tamale. Don't talk about Taprade and all that. Look at Tema. How they laid out the place, and look at what my generation, we've done to Tema. A glorified shanty. It's terrible. It's not acceptable. It does not befit us. You have to reject it. You have to reject it. Look, the damage that my generation has done to this country, I don't know how to quantify it to you. If you can deliberately set up a divestiture implementation committee, divest your own country of its industrial, manufacturing, agricultural base, so that you depend on imports. You become a dumping ground. You are proud that Abubakari is a dumping ground of electronic waste. And your own citizens are burning and oh my goodness. And you are proud of that. We can't even deal with simple waste. We can't provide toilets for our people. They'll go to toilets in plastic bags, throw them anywhere. It dries up, bursts, and what is in the air? You go out, come back, take a tissue, wipe your forehead, put it under a microscope, and you'll be surprised how we are surviving. Young people are dying of diseases. Even in their 30s, stroke. How is it possible? And all as a result of my generation. My generation. My generation. Yes. Yes. We have failed. We have failed Ghana. Because a nation is on the verge of collapse when the vast majority of its youth wake up in the morning with nothing to look forward to. And this is what is happening. This is what is happening. It used not to be like that. But now this is what it is. So if history is taken out, then you won't have knowledge of what used to be for you to compare. And look at the irony of it all. Sometimes when Ghanaians complain that things are difficult, petrol prices, food and all that, then the government apparatus, information, communicators and all that, then they will come on and say, oh, look at Togo, the prices of this is this. Now, What are they saying about Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali? What are they saying about them? What are they telling Ghanaians? That, oh, within 2 years, the young man, Traore, he has paid all the debts and he's transforming the country. So if he can do it, it can be done here. Why are they not doing that comparative analysis? That is your job. That is your job. You have to be asking questions.
Right, yeah. So let me ask you, the Alliance of Sahel States, what do you think about them, the leaders, and I mean their Pan-Africanism, how fast or how quickly they have moved to form an alliance? What do you think about what is happening there?
It is, they have picked up from where Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Modibo Keita, where they started with the Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union. They've picked up from there. And they are doing well. But as Nkrumah warned, that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. What is going on in the sister states of the Sahel, AES, can only be sustained if it is linked up with our sense of liberating ourselves from what I call Balkanized Bantustans. Ghana is a Balkanized Bantustan. Nigeria is. So we, in order for them to succeed, we have to make sure that there's a regime change that will complement what they are doing. Otherwise, theirs is in danger. That is the ethos of Nkrumah saying that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it is our responsibility to ensure that Ghanaians know what is happening there and they demand a change to complement what is. If they are doing it, we can do it. And we have a history of doing it. So we can pick up with the benefit of hindsight and do it. That is the challenge. And I fully support what they are doing. But I'm also aware that it's against tremendous odds because the Americans, US and its NATO allies and Israel, they are doing whatever they can to reverse it. They are doing whatever they can to undermine it. And they will use our own people to undermine it. They will do that. There's a common Jewish saying that even the termite knows that in order to bring down a building, it has to penetrate it. And we say that Abubakari, the insect that will bite or sting you come from your own clothes. So they are doing very well, and we need to know what they are doing and organize solidarity supports, organize demonstrations at the French and the American embassies, tell them hands off Niger, hands off Mali, hands off Burkina Faso. Let them manage their own affairs. Hands off them. And you see the benefit of kicking out the French. We should kick out the Americans, the British, the Canadians, the Dutch, all of these people. They combine their security and intelligence to undermine and overthrow Nkrumah. Then when the NLC and the PNDC came, who are taking control of our gold, who have taken control of our oil, who have taken control of our bauxite, who are controlling control of our wood, timbers, our fisheries, and all that. You have to think twice. The same thing like it happened in Angola. Can you imagine Angola? How the Cubans, Fidel Castro, the heroic people of Cuba, they helped to liberate Angola, only for the Assimilados, Dos Santos and his bank of crooks to hand over Angola to the Americans. Such ingratitude. Such ingratitude. I'll tell you something. Castro was sick, and we knew that he was going to die. And it troubled me. I said, so Africa is going to wait for Castro to die, then we'll be sending condolence messages, going to the embassy to sign this and all that. But while Castro is alive, why don't we honor him and pay tribute to him for what the Cubans did? Cuba, under sanctions, is able to send doctors, engineers, and all out. And Ghana, we are beneficiary. African, we are beneficiary. And Castro is dying. And we can't even honor Castro to tell the Cuban people how we appreciate what you have done for us in our struggle against apartheid. I used to be at the OAU during the transition period. I was a special advisor to the Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity, His Excellency Amara Esse. So I knew the workings. So I approached them and said, we have to do something to honor Castro. The officers that I approached them said, brilliant, brilliant. Put some ideas together. I did. And they took it brilliant. Then I wasn't hearing from them. Then there was one that I knew there at the office of the Secretary General. And that time it was the president of the commission. And then he said, you know what? I'll have to tell you frankly, our leadership are afraid of offending the US because of the relationship with Cuba. It's brilliant, but we don't have the political will to be able to do it. So I said, what next? So then let me look for a country that was independent, does not depend very much in terms of their budgetary support on the US, its NATO allies, the IMF, World Bank, and the European Union, the Paris Club, and all these people. Then what came to mind was Namibia. So I approached the leadership of SWAPO and met with President Sam Nujoma, and I explained things to them. He said, why don't you honor him for Africa? For Cuba, for Castro to die like that. We have to do that. So he supported. Had a meeting with SWAPO. And at that time, I was very close to the Prime Minister. And who was the Foreign Minister, and he and Sam Nujoma, they were the young people who fought when they were 17, 18 against the apartheid regime. And so he managed the access. And the government chose their Independence Day to give the highest honor to Castro and the people of Cuba. Africa saved the situation. That is Namibia saved the situation for us. And it was through my initiative and hard drive. And it happened. You see, so we are in great difficulties because we are surrounded by forces that are still controlling us, telling us what to eat, to the extent that they tell us that genetically modified organism food is good for us. Look, there are things happening in this country. There was one incident in Kumawu. An old man, he's dead now. He called me, took me to his compound, and took me to a shed. And he had collected parts of seeds of several plants and all that he himself was storing. He said, I'm going to die, and what to do with this? So you have some people who are conscious and aware, and this old man is also a herbalist, a traditional herbalist, and that was his concern. And then they were not listening to, the palace would not listen to him. There's the Forestry Commission and all that, they would not listen to him. But he was anxious. He knew the value. So that is the stage where we are. And it's all because of my generation, that betrayal. That betrayal. That betrayal. So you have to ask questions. Our psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, they have to be asking questions. What is wrong? How come we are in this mess? A generation who should know better. A generation who knows that if they are sick, in order to get well, they have to go to England, they have to go to Paris, they have to go to US, they have to go to India, they have to go to Dubai. There are hospitals to take care of them. And they come back and they live in this mess and drive around all these crevices worse than the moon's surface. Terrible. our roads, you have to be asking questions. And Ghanaians too. I am amazed. I am really simply amazed. Look at Accra. Who has built Accra? It's individuals. It's you, Ghanaians. You have built Accra. There are no social housing. Since Nkrumah and Acheampong, there's been no social housing. But it's the citizens themselves that are building the nation. And it's only left for government to provide the sewage system, the drainage system, the waste disposal system, the quality roads, the water and sewage system. That is what the government is left to do, because you are not putting up any housing. And look, we're living in dust. 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 Filthy roads. Bad roads. And we take this, then we hear that $200,000, $2 million, $20 million have been pilfered, looted, or whatever. Then sometimes I sit down and say, do we have that much money in the country for people to be stealing? And our roads and everything, the health situations and all that are bad? I remember one incident. At 37, I went to inquire about a medicine at the dispensary, the pharmacy. I was there when a woman, her turn came, she gave her prescription to the dispenser, the pharmacist, and she said, please tell me how much it's going to cost. And he said about 210 cedis. And the woman was shivering and said, I have only 40 cedis on me. Please give me 40 cedis worth of the prescription. That is what the woman said. Give me 40 cedis worth of the prescription. This is where we have reduced the country to. This is where we have reduced the country to. And this is my generation. Look, the mess that we have caused this country is unimaginable. It's not acceptable. You should not be accepting it. You've made life easy for us. You've made life easy. You have to be on our back. We have really caused murder and genocide, quiet genocide. We're killing our people. We are wicked. We are really, 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 really wicked. We are wicked. We are really, really wicked. Ghana 2025, and we don't have railway system to carry the heavy load. How do we explain it? How do you accept this? Why should you accept it? A government that cannot even run an airline or a party, how can you run a nation? And we are sitting on this. There's no government in Ghana. There is absolutely no government in Ghana.
Senior, you refer to the two main political parties as the Dukadaya. First of all, what is the meaning of the word, and why do you refer to them as that?
I refer to them as Dukadaya because Dukadaya is a Hausa parlance, which means two sides of the same coin. They are the same. The NDC and the NPP, they are the same. They originate from the NLC. They originate from the Avoidance of Discrimination Act, which was passed in December 1958, soon after independence. No, 57. 57. At that time, of course, prior to that, the country, the parties were formed along ethnic lines. The Northern this, the Ewe this, the Ga this, the Ashanti this, and all that. And Nkrumah saw that that was dangerous. This is a unitary state. We want one Ghana, one common destiny, with one common destiny, one people. So he's passed through Parliament, and Parliament passed an act, the Avoidance of Discrimination. So the country, you cannot form any party organization along tribal, along sexes, along religious, whatever line. So the country was a secular state, a secular unitary state, a uniting state. And it was this that forced the small parties, ethnic-based parties, to come together at Adabraka, at the park, which they call Unity Park. That was where Kufuor, Rawlings, Chikates, and the Hawaii, and that's where they used to play. So they know each other from a long time, you see. So they belong to the middle class, or the middlemen who were between the colonialists and the rest of the country. So they were the lawyers, the surveyors, the traders, the this and that, and they were all centered in Adabraka. And I'll tell you this, if you don't know, you know Bounce Road. The road from the Catholic Cathedral, passing through the museums, and then through the TUC, all the way through to Tudu. You see that road, Bounce Road. That was the dividing line. After 6 o'clock, you have to have a reason or a pass to cross that line. So that was what the Oforiatas, the Akufuados, the Dankwas, whatever it is, that was that they were living under. It was Nkrumah who came and broke that barrier. So North Ridge, cantonments, and all those places, you have to, as a black man, you have to have a reason after 6 o'clock. You couldn't pass there. This is not a long time ago. This happened in Ghana. Nkrumah came and broke that barrier. And they accepted it. They accepted it. Those living under Brakau, Foriata, Danquest, and all that. But Nkrumah, when you came where? Koyoboti and all that, they were living in a Newtown area. You see. So, it's not far off. This happened in Ghana. Some people accepted it, and some people rejected it. And those who rejected it, they are giving names. And now I'm saying that reject that system, because that system is prevailing now. The system that the Nkrumah generation rejected is existing now. The system whereby all the roads and railways and everything led to the extraction of resources to come to Takoradi to be shipped away. It's the same thing that is existing. But even all the diamond, the gold, the bauxite, all they'll come back and ship away, and there's no value added to it. It's still the same system. So that's why I'm saying you should not be accepting it. Reject it. It's the same system. That is what Nkrumah called neo-colonialism. And it was his book that he wrote and published in 1965. Neo-colonialism, the last stage of imperialism. When the British Prime Minister at that time and the American President, Harold Wilson, at Whitehall, and Lyndon B. Johnson at White House, they threatened Nkrumah not to publish that book or face the consequences. And he published it and faced the consequences.
Yes, sir. So you are the architect behind the celebration of Black History Month in the UK. Can you please tell us the story of how it all came about?
If you permit me, I'll have to go back a little bit.
Sure.
I entered the UK in late January 1984 as a refugee. I was running away from political persecution under the Rawlings regime. On January 4th, 1984, they sent their death squad after me. They surrounded where I lived, cantonments just opposite the Guinean embassy, not far from the British High Commission in that area. And wanted to abduct me and basically go and kill me, just like they killed the judges. They sent almost about 30 armed soldiers surrounded the house, but I managed to escape. And it was the PDCs and the WDCs and the unions who gave me protection. And that same evening, there was radio, TV announcement that I was been declared a wanted man. And the borders and everybody should be looking out for me. But with the help of the unions and the defense committees, they were protecting me from town to town, village to village, and all that, hiding me and all that. The advance party will go and see that this is clear and all that. So for about 2 weeks, getting to 3 weeks, playing and hide and seek with the security agencies. So they managed to help me, and we crossed the river and over the boat into Côte d'Ivoire. And then from there, I took a flight to Paris and then went to London and became a refugee.
Senior, sorry to cut you, but why were you being persecuted by the regime?
It's difficult to tell, but I think I had touched on the nerves of the sensitivities of the regime and what their backers were concerned about. It was, I think, the whole issue around gold. I wrote a series of articles under a pen name, and the title of the article was Ghana's Gold, the Revolution Sinks or Swim by It. And I went into history to show how Ghana was very rich in gold, how we indigene ourselves, how we mined and everything, where the gold deposits and all that, that if the revolution really meant well, then they should put their hands in all the gold and declare gold a strategic mineral asset of the nation. That not a single ounce of gold will leave the country without value added. And that we are going to build our own Fort Knox and hold our own gold bars and revive our gold, what do we call the goldsmith industry, because we were very industrial. Instead of people going to Dubai and India and all that, they have to come here and buy gold trinkets, gold jewelry and all that. And this found favor with the Mine Workers Union and all that, and it agitated and it raised some concern in the country and all that. So I had touched on the very reason that also got Nkrumah overthrown, because Nkrumah had a plan that by 1972, we were going to have total control over our gold and all that. That is why they were building the refinery at Takwa. Yes. And then not a single foreign exchange of Ghana will be deposited abroad. Everything will be centered here. And was also pursuing the idea of denominating our currency not to the dollar or the sterling, but to gold. Just like Gaddafi was trying to get Africa to do. Nkrumah was thinking about that. These were part of it. So, it became difficult at that time, and all that I picked up later was that the country was too small for Rawlings and I. So one had to give way. So they came for me, but I managed to escape.
Okay, so now back to you.
Arriving in the UK. Yeah, so I arrived in the UK, and at that time, CLR James had moved to England and was living in Brixton with the Race Today collective run by Dakus and Lila Howe. So naturally, CLR James is my mentor, political father and all that. So I went and pitched camp with him. And I quickly became the chairman of the African Refugee Housing Action Group. And later on, there came a job opening at the Greater London Council, and they needed someone who can handle it. So I was basically headhunted and given a job at the Greater London Council. And then I became responsible for special projects dealing with anti-apartheid campaigns, anti-racism campaigns, and all that. And then it's also ensuring equal opportunities and treatment of Blacks, of Asians, or disadvantaged people, including gays and lesbians, travelers, immigrants, and all that. So my brief was very wide, and it all centered around working to bring racial harmony within the local authorities, so that all those living and paying taxes and living within the London boroughs, they will enjoy equal access to services without any discrimination. That was what was involved in. And then one day, I lived in Wandsworth on Lavender Hill at that time. In 1985, I was going to work. I got to work, normally I got to work early, and at the Greater London Council, which was on the Thames, just adjacent the Houses of Parliament. And I go to work, and then the group secretary, she had her head on her desk, and I noticed that she was crying. So I said, "What's the matter, Elizabeth? What's the matter?" She raised up her head with tears and said, "Would you believe it? Last night, I was putting Marcus to bed. And after prayers, as I left the room, Marcus called me back to his bedside. And Marcus, looking at me, asked me, 'Mom, why can't I be white?' She said she was at a loss. She couldn't understand where the question came from. Looking at the son and said, 'My son, 6-year-old son, who I have deliberately named after Marcus Garvey, questioning his identity. Why can't I be white? 6-year-old. Then she said, 'I have failed my son. I have failed my son. I have failed my son.' And I said, 'No, hell no, Elizabeth, you have not failed your son. You have not failed. Don't say that. You have not failed your son. It is rather the institutions of state, the Department of Education, the national curriculum, the local authorities, the schools, the churches, the museums, the libraries, the universities. They have failed your son. But not only your son, but every child growing up in this United Kingdom has equally been failed. So don't say that.' I calmed her down, and something stirred up in me that something has to be done. Something had to be done. In the belly of Babylon, the belly of imperialism, the financial capital of the world, whose wealth was based on the appropriation and exploitation of the ancestors of young Marcus. And young Marcus growing up in this United Kingdom has been made to question his identity. There was something wrong. Something had to be done about this. Something had to be done about this. And that kept ringing in my ears. That kept ringing in my ears. That kept ringing in my ears. So I set myself the task of trying to do something about it. And I was in a position to do something about it because I was in a strategic position, working within the ethnic minority unit of the Director General's office that ran the whole of London. And there were committees that underpinned the administration and running of London. So there was the Ethnic Minorities Committee, which the chairman of that committee was the leader of the Greater London Council, that is Ken Livingstone. And his deputy was Paul Boateng, who is now Lord Boateng. So it showed how seriously the leader Ken Livingstone took the issue of racism and apartheid. So I happened to be working with that committee and the unit, ethnic minorities unit. And it was all, the ethnic minority unit was under the principal race relations advisor to the entire council, Mr. Ansel Wong, a brilliant activist born in Trinidad, community activist, an organizer. And I discussed the problem with him, and he encouraged me. So I drew out a program that London is going to celebrate the contributions of Africans and people of African descent to world civilizations. London should deal with the problem of the trauma faced by young Marcus and the mother. I confronted the trauma in the eyes and the weeping eyes of Elizabeth, Marcus's mother. She was in trauma, and the son was also in trauma. That cannot continue. Something had to deal with it. So if they knew their past and what they have done and all that, that will be helpful. In the same way that I benefited from the Young Pioneer Movement under Nkrumah and the teaching of the African personality and all that, I saw no reason why that should not be also within our communities. And moreover, I was in the US, and I was part of the campaigns that led to President Ford making a proclamation to change the History Negro Week, the Negro History Week, to Black History Month. That was in 1976. So I knew about that. So the first thing was to create a climate in London and across the country for the population to have an appreciation of Africa's contribution to world civilization and the schools and all that. So we organized a series of lectures funded by the Greater London Council, bringing the best brains we have, psychiatrists, psychologists, historians, scientists, and all that from the US, Africa, Europe, and brought them to London to give lectures all over, and some went to Birmingham, Bristol, Glasgow, Manchester, all over the place. So we created a buzz and atmosphere in London about Africa, to counter the negative images at that time. The war in Ethiopia, the hunger, the pestilence that faced Ethiopia, and what you saw on television with kids with flies on their noses and all this were off-putting for the young ones. It was difficult for them. And you know that young ones also can be very cruel in school playgrounds and all that. They will be laughing at you, look at you, African, do this and all that. So it was difficult, very difficult period. So that was the essence of it. And we organized it, and within the artistic sphere, so we brought in some of the top artists in Africa. I brought in Ganaba, Max Roach, Leta Mbulu, a whole lot. Then lecturers, some of the best, my historian, Ben Jekanan, John Henry Clark, Tony Martin. We brought all Angela Davis. At that time, we brought Winnie Mandela and all. We brought them. Grasa Machel and
Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yes, all of them. Sally Mugabe and all them. We brought them. And it was possible because of the personal relationship I had with all of them also, majority of them. And they were coming to support they understood what I was trying to do. So they willingly, when I threw my hands to them and said, come in and all that, and with the support of the Greater London Council, they all came to support what we were trying to do. Okay. And that we did that. Then we noticed that the period 1987-88 was a unique period. It marked the 150th anniversary of emancipation from slavery in the Caribbean, the 100th anniversary of the birth of Marcus Garvey, the 30th anniversary of Ghana's independence, and the 25th anniversary of the founding of the Organization of African Unity. So we said that we are going to celebrate the period 1987-88 as African Jubilee Year. African Jubilee Year. So then to do that, you have to get a proclamation made and for the councils to adopt that declaration and pass it. So I drafted the African Jubilee Year Declaration, and the declaration basically went into the history of colonialism, imperialism, neocolonialism, the slavery, enslavement, and the impact on us, and then the fight against apartheid, to support apartheid, and the need to support, not to undermine the independence of the African nations and movements and all that, because at the back of my mind, I knew what had been done to Nkrumah, Lumumba, and all that. You see, so I put all this in the declarations. And I managed to get it passed. You see, with the support of an enlightened leadership at the Greater London Council. We were lucky and blessed to have an enlightened leadership. And remember, that period also was a very difficult period. It was the time that Reagan was in the White House and Margaret Thatcher was in Whitehall. And these two giants were doing everything to support the apartheid regime and all that. And then they considered the councillors at the Greater London Council as socialist, communist, red, leftists, and all that. They wanted to abolish the Greater London Council. So we were under a lot of pressure, but we managed to get this thing through. So the declaration, at the end of the declaration, said that the month of October and every October thereafter is going to be declared Black History Month. And this was passed by the 32 boroughs of London. Then we had an association of local authorities against apartheid, which brought together nearly 120 authorities across the country. So all of them supported the declaration and became a nationwide thing. So the month of October was decided. And we decided on the month of October for a reason. I knew, and most of us also knew, that Black History Month was celebrated in February in the US. But Black History Month, Carter G. Woods in 1926, when he set up the Negro History Week, was based on that February was the month that Frederick Douglass and Washington were born. And February is cold. It's during the heat of the winter. and the weather is not very friendly. So we have to situate it at a period that will be good. But what was important was that it's about children. The trauma that young Marcus was going through and every children. So we had to situate it in a period where the children had come back from their long vacation to the schools, and they were not saddled with exams. Their minds were fresh, and there was a lot of camaraderie and bondship, sharing experiences. This long vacation, I went here, and this, I experienced this, and all that. So it's a period of sharing and learning and all that. And that was also in sync with the African custom, what the autumn equinox meant to us as Africans. It's a period of the harvest, the period of plenty, the period of sharing, the period when all the chiefs, sub-chiefs, and the elders and all, they gathered at the capital to examine the state of the nation. And where difficulties are, they are settled, differences are settled, and then they go back to their respective principalities and villages and towns so that the union or the kingdom remain strong. So it's a period of stock taking. We take stock. So that is why we chose October.
Right, senior.
That's why we chose October. And so in 1987, October, we launched the African Jubilee Year at the Westminster Central Hall on June 30th, 1987. And I had invited President Mugabe to come and launch it. But an emergency meeting of the OAU was taking place on, I think, 2nd July or so he couldn't make it. So the Central Committee decided to send Sally Mugabe. So she came to launch the African Jubilee Year at the Westminster Central Hall. And we chose the Westminster Central Hall because of its historical importance to us, because it was a gathering area and the preparation for the 5th Pan-African Congress. And Nkrumah, they used to use that place. That is why I chose that place for historical purposes and linkage and for sense of spiritual continuity and all that. So we got Burning Spear and others to come. It was a wonderful event, And then fast forward, we moved to October, and I invited Dr. Mwalanga Karenga, who is the founder of Kwanzaa, if you heard about Kwanzaa. And I invited him to come and launch Black History Month together with the council leaders and all that. And now he's grown up to be under the largest event period in Europe.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. Amazing. So everybody celebrates Black History Month.
Yes, and it is the brainchild of yourself sitting here. And on behalf of all African people and people of African descent, especially in the UK, I want to say thank you for putting in the work to make it possible. Yes, and senior, beyond that, in December of 2022, you were conferred with the Honorary Doctorate of Literature by the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies. How did that make you
feel? It was a surprise. And I think it was the students' body that did that. I think I had a session with them and which moved the students. And I think they helped. And together with another Ghanaian, Ama Fusua Poku, who is a librarian at the School of Oriental and African Studies Library. And She also worked with the student body. And it was basically in recognition of what I've done with Black History Month, what I've done with regards to facilitating an end to the civil wars in Liberia and Sierra Leone. I've done the Organization of African Unity, where I helped to set up what we now call the Council of the Wise. It was the Eminent Persons Advisory Panel, which I helped to set up. And the first chairman was this former, during the war, Gowon, Yakubu Gowon. I deliberately chose Yakubu Gowon because he got a civil war in Nigeria ended and all that. And his deputy was Ben Bella, the former president of Algeria. I deliberately chose Ben Bella because of the significance of Ben Bella and all that. So I did that. There are some other things that I did also that they recognized and felt that they should honor me, and they gave me that honor.
Now I want to ask you about the research before. What did Kwame Nkrumah mean for Ghana and Africa?
First, coming to Ghana, the question that has to be asked is, why was the name Ghana chosen for the secular state that came to be known as Ghana, was put together? The Gokos, the Northern, the Volta, Ashanti, and all that, putting it together to form the secular state called Ghana. And they chose the name Ghana. Why Ghana? They chose the name Ghana after the ancient empire of Ghana. And what was that ancient empire of Ghana? It was known as the land of jurisprudence, the land of law and order, the land of discipline, the land of wealth, gold. And statecraft and governance was such that there was no corruption as such. If you dropped your purse full of money or gold or whatever it is on the street, and you remember where you dropped it, and you go back and you find it lying there, no one will touch it. If after a couple of hours a day they find it there, they will take it to the palace, and you can go to the palace and claim it. That was the level of discipline. And that was what Ghana was supposed to mean to us, you and I. Because when you are naming a child, you name a child for the child to be inspired that name to grow and develop the characteristics of the person that you are naming the child after. That is part of our custom. So Ghana, the Nkrumah generation chose the names Ghana for a purpose. In the same way that they chose 6 March as Independence Day to counteract the bond of 1844, which was signed on the 6th of March, 1844. So Nkrumah, everything that they did had a meaning behind it. So Ghana lived up to what it was supposed to be. And to be a leader, as the old Ghana Empire was a leader, a land of enlightenment, a land of civilization, discipline, growth, which had ambassadors going to Spain, Portugal, all over the place. A well-organized society. So that was what Nkrumah was about the African personality. That if we did it before, we can do it again. Despite the trauma of colonialism, imperialism, enslavement, and all that. It is within our DNA. We built the pyramids. We built civilizations. So if we dig very, very, very deep, we can recover ourselves and take pride in ourselves and rebuild. So that was the meaning of Nkrumah to Ghana and Africa. And what is important is that Nkrumah was very clear on the dais at Polo Grounds at midnight when the British flag was pulled down and then the Ghana flag was lifted up, and he spoke extempore. He said the spirit of Garvey, the spirit of Toussaint Louverture, Harriet Tubman, all of the Yasantu, all of them was there. Their spirits were there at that moment. So he linked, in just a few seconds, linked the whole struggle to emancipation in the Caribbean, in the United States, in Europe, all over the African diaspora, that we were organically linked. And so, for the independence of Ghana to be meaningful, it has to be linked up with the total liberation and unification of the African continent. Oh my goodness, that is profound. And now, as I'm speaking to you now, look at the state of Ghana. Look at the state of Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire, Sudan, Congo. Because these states and their independence are not linked up to the total liberation and unification of the African continent, their independence has become meaningless. That is the essence and value of Nkrumah to Ghana and Africa.
Right, Sia. What would you say has been the impact of the 1966 coup on Ghana and Africa as a whole?
A watershed. And the West, they knew what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. Please, we have to look carefully at the period when Lumumba was killed, assassinated, and then the drive towards dealing with settler regimes like the apartheid South Africa and Rhodesia in that period, and the period when the French were testing atomic bombs in the Sahara and all that, the Algerian Civil War and all this. So that period between 61 and 66 was the Vietnam War was going on, the world was totally agitated. And then Nkrumah, here was somebody who was doing something about it, that we have to be independent, we have to unite and all that. And we did not get the African OAU that we wanted. The Americans had to use the Monrovia and the Brazzaville clubs to undermine what we wanted to do. And of course, Haile Selassie was also used by the Americans and all that. And the last thing that they wanted was Accra to be the headquarters of the Organization of African Unity. And they achieved it. So the coup was a major blow, a setback, because it halted the advance of Ghana and Africa. But what you have to understand is that they had to stop Nkrumah. The last thing that they wanted to see happen was the OAU, the first chairman, by virtue of it being taking place in Addis Ababa, was Haile Selassie. Then the second chairman was NASA, 1964. And 65, Nkrumah, they had to stop it. For the whole of Africa, for the chairmanship to come to Ghana, they had to do everything to stop it. And they did it. That is what you have to know. And you as a Ghanaian, you have to know and understand who you are as a Ghanaian and how the West, the Americans, the Israelis, the Germans, the French, the British, the Canadians, Australians, how they see you. You are a threat to their ways of survival, exploiting, taking our minerals and others cheaply. You are a threat because as a Ghanaian, you have a tradition of resistance to colonialism, imperialism. You form the Aborigine Rights Society and all that. So that is you, the Ghanaian, you have to know. You have been fighting against this colonization and exploitation. You've been fighting against it. Ni Kwame Nkrumah is in you. Kojo Thompson is in you. Yas Antua is in you. That is what you represent as a Ghanaian. So you are a threat to their interests. So your sense of enlightenment and having command over your own history and what has happened and having the value of a sense of your African personality, you are a threat to their interests. That is why their eyes, eagle eyes, are on Ghana to make sure that Ghana stays in their orbit of control, because when Ghana rises up, the whole of Africa rises up. They don't want that history ever to happen again. And that's what you should know. And that is what the essence of the coup d'etat took place, to make sure that Nkrumah did not serve as the chairman of the Organization of African Unity at that critical period of 65, 66, that period, for the chairmanship to come to Accra. They were scared of what was the consequences of it. It has to be stopped. So Harold Wilson, the British Prime Minister, and the American President at that time, Lyndon Johnson, so they conspired. To get Nkrumah out and organize the coup. They conspired. They tricked him. You see. And what is interesting is this. You have to be asking questions. Even if you read Dark Days in Ghana, it's in there. Getting to the last quarter of 1965, Nkrumah reorganized his security services, and appointed a civil servant, Eric Otu, as the coordinator. And Nkrumah says it, that intelligence also had come to him that Hale and Gbeku and some of the police forces, Mahunyaga and others, they were involved in diamond racketeering with Israeli security and intelligence people. So he got the Attorney General, Geoffrey Bin, to investigate. And Geoffrey did and investigated and gave the report to Eric Otu to send to Nkrumah. And Eric Otu, instead of sending a report to Nkrumah, he went and showed a report to Hale and Gbeku. Unknown to Nkrumah, Eric Otu was a CIA asset. And guess what? When the PNDC came to power, Kojo Chikata was in charge of foreign affairs. He was basically helping to run the country. And who did they appoint as their ambassador to the US? It was Eric Otu. And at that time, who was vice president of the US? It was George Bush Sr.
The former CIA was.
Yes. So you have to be asking questions and be thinking. You can link you can link it up. Why would they do that? They knew what they were doing. So why would they go for structural adjustment and all these things and being the golden boys of the IMF and the World Bank and all that? It has a history. It has a history that I told you goes back to the Congo. So that is what Nkrumah in the 66 coup, and we haven't recovered from that. Because if it had not happened, remember that in 1961, in April, Nkrumah had made the dawn broadcast that he was going to the place of cleaning the rotten system. He was cleaning it. He was cleansing it. You see, and there was resistance by the Gbedemans and the boats, and all them. They were resisting it. You see, Ayekumi and all these people, they were resisting him. And he was building up the young pioneer rapidly, a new generation of people to come up. And this whole thing was crashed down, was crushed by the Americans and the British, the Germans, the Belgians, the Australians, the Canadians, and all that. But come to think of it, the very forces that use their intelligence and security apparatus to undermine and overthrow the Nkrumah regime, they have become the beneficiary of the commanding heights of the Ghanaian economy. The Australians, the Canadians, the Americans, the British, the oil, the gold, the gas, the this, the lithium. They control it. Destroy the industrial ingenuity of Ghanaians, Swedro contractors, and all these who were building and all that. We have destroyed them. This is the Ghana. That is the harvest that those who organize the overthrow of Ghana. Ghana has become their farm, their harvest, their plantation. and they have placed supervisors, overseers. That is the executive. That is the Dukadaya. You see, that's why I call them Dukadaya. They are one and the same. They are the same. And then I ask, Dukadaya, their value is the same. And then I ask the question, what sort of mind will give a counterfeit note to the blind? And that is what the Dukadaya are. They are giving us counterfeit note. They are so wicked that they will offer a counterfeit note as an offertory on Friday prayers and on church service on Sunday to people, knowing that it's fake, it's false. And that is how they are running down this country. They are fake. We have to get rid of them. And it is your responsibility to do that. And you have to organize it. And you have to do that with inspiration from Nkrumah, because that's how they organize themselves to get rid of the British colonial system. And now we have the neo-colonial system, which is being run by what Fanon described as what? Black skin, white mask, right?
Yeah.
Then as far back as the 1920s, Kobnasechi, the lawyer, he wrote a book, The Blinkards, showing the problem that we have with black skin, white masks, who have sold their soul out to the imperialists and keeping us down as the middle folks.
Senior, finally, I want you to share a message to young people today who are drowning in despair and hopelessness due to lack of opportunities. I want you to speak to them and just, I don't know what you'd have to say to them, but I just want you to speak to the young people who are watching this interview and are looking for a way out.
They must see themselves as the way out. You are the way out. You are suffering. Your parents are suffering. Please, see the trickstery, the fraudulent nature of the whole system. And you are supporting the system and making the system work and survive, because you are tolerating the mess. Just look at the education system, you as a youth. You graduate from high school, from the university, with a PhD, master's and BA, and you don't have a job. And you are still sitting on your parents. And your parents are subsidizing you. And by that means your parents are subsidizing the government. The money that should go on to provide quality education for you and job opportunities for you, what are they doing with the money? They are stealing the money and sending it to Panama, sending it to other islands, havens and all that. So you have to know what is happening, because your parents sacrifice when you go to school. Your parents have to provide everything, to the extent that nowadays students in boarding schools have to buy pure water to drink. This is very cruel and unacceptable. Unacceptable. So our children in the boarding schools, they are open to health and mental problems, because at least you should have not less than 3-4 liters of water a day to drink. They cannot afford. So they will take 5 sachet whatever of water, because they can't afford to buy about 6, 7, 8 sachet water. They can't. Do you know what is doing to their health and their mental state? We are wicked. My generation is very, very wicked. We are really, really wicked. Wicked. We've messed you up. We've messed your generation up. So the liberation is you. You have to say that I don't accept this order. This neo-colonial order, I don't accept it. It is dehumanizing us. It is making our parents poor, impoverished, and we don't accept it. We are going to do something about it. Unless you rise up to do something about it, how can you be getting to 40 and you still call yourself a youth with no job? Who is responsible for that? It's those who call themselves government and their civil servants and those institutions of state. They are responsible for your state of unemployment, the sense of hopelessness that you feel. They are responsible. And you have to get to a point where you say no. But you don't do it alone. It's an organized action. Just like Kwame Nkrumah did. He came and went down to the countryside, organized the youth, the market women and all that. You should be organizing yourself. You should not be suffering and tormenting yourself alone. Find each other, gather around a tree and sit down and study. Study. Look at the environment that you live in, the bad roads, the dead that surround you. Find a way. Talk with the local chiefs and all that, that we have to do something about it. The change comes from you and from below, that you don't accept the living conditions, no toilets and all that. You don't accept it. We have to do something on our own. And there is money there. When you look around you, what do you see? Churches are springing up. Mosques are springing out. Every 200 meters, 300 meters, there's a church springing up. Where did the money come from to build those churches? So there's money there. It's left with organization. It's left with organization to change it. And you can change it. But before that, do not be accepting of what my generation has done. You cannot expect any inspiring political and economic perspective from my generation. My generation, we are wicked, self-centered, and selfish. You can't depend on us. You have to depend on yourself. You have to depend on yourself. That is my message to you. The liberation of this country depends on you. You have to always examine your future in the present. Your future in the present. Can you sit down for your tomorrow to be your sorrow? If you are sitting down for your tomorrow to be your sorrow, then it is you. You are the problem. You have to change regimes here and reorder society in your own image, collective interest and security. There were some people the Rawlingses, the Chikates, the Ahoys, and others, they banded together and took over power to change the Liman regime and shape it in their own interest, self-interest. And all these years, from 1982 January to now, what do you see? What do you see? The filth that surrounds us. We don't know the value of the largest freshwater body left on this planet for us, that Nkrumah created, the water lake. We don't even know the value of it to us. You have to find value of it and change it. It does not make sense that gold is taken away and our land is despoiled. And that was what I talked about in 1983 and got me into trouble. Our ancestors, look up from ancient Ghana, Mali, all the way coming down here, they were mining. You heard about Mansa Musa and his trip. But did they despoil the land?
No.
Did they despoil the rivers and the water bodies? No! But my generation, we are doing it. We are supervising it. It's your responsibility to say that we will not let this happen again. We are going to organize ourselves and take this country back. It's our country. Take it from us. My generation, we have failed you. Kick us out. We don't deserve. There's no government in Ghana. It's a bunch of crooks, thieves. A government connotes a sense of care, but there's no that sense of duty of care in those manning the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And on top of it, the press and the media also have all been messed up. So society has to be reordered. And no one else can do it but you. And remember that you are a Ghanaian. A Ghanaian whose origins from ancient Ghana, from ancient Egypt. You, the African. If you did it before, you can do it. It's in your DNA. You can do it.
Thank you very much, sir, for being with us in this interview. We are very grateful for you sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure, and I appreciate what you are doing. And I'm glad that you're giving me the opportunity to express myself and share whatever that I have with you, the younger generation. But the onus is on you, the younger generation, as I keep saying. It's on you. Nkrumah, their generation, they took the onus and took action and acted. So now the time is yours. The opportunity is yours. This is your time. Seize the time.
Thank you, senior. And you're always welcome. We hope this will be the first of many such interviews. So we hope to have you again.
Thank you. I'm at your service.
Yes, and to you watching, we appreciate you taking the time to watch this interview. And we hope you continue to support us by sharing this video to others and also subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much.